Well, hi. So, we film these practice sessions in advance, obviously, so that we can put them up for the time that they premiere. And it turns out that we're filming this one on Tuesday morning after the horrific events in Boulder yesterday. And so we come to this with a heavy heart. We don't know anybody who was one of the victims of the mass shooting at the supermarket. We've heard from people that they're safe, so I'm glad for that, but obviously there's a lot of families and friends hurting today, and we all have very heavy hearts about it. So let's do what we can do, which is Taiji, and try to bring some balance to our own little worlds and hope that that can affect the bigger world. What we're going to be doing this for the next several weeks is a deep dive into the first third. We're going to look at each move square form and then look at what it takes to make it round. So let's start with a first third, and then we'll dive into it. And begin. So today we're going to look at the Wardoffs. We're working through bit by bit, so you might want to, if you missed the first one, you might want to catch them at some point so that you get all the pieces in order. We won't repeat everything every time, and we'll just focus on a couple moves each time. So let's look at Wardoff Left. So let me go over first the square form details. So you've just finished doing the opening move, and here are some checkpoints for us. Into the left leg, turning to the right, and the palms come toward each other as you turn. The right foot pivots on the heel, and as you shift, you move toward your hands, and at this point, you're facing the wall, and the two hands are lined up over one another, and the fingers are pointing to, 90 degrees to where you are. So I'm facing a west wall, and I've got fingers going south and fingers going north. And turn to the corner and step. Be careful to step so that you will have a shoulder width 70-30 at the end. And as you shift, the right fingers come inside the left arm with about a 2-finger width space between where your fingers pass your left arm. So you're coming into it with the right hand on the inside, and as you complete the move, the right hand comes down. This is what our teachers called as if resting on the head of a small child, and the left arm is in Wardoff. You want to be careful that your right arm is not pulled back at all. Let it be. The small child is standing here by your right leg. So let's do those pieces. So we've just finished the opening move, so you can start with your feet in a good position. And sit to the left, turn to the right. Hands come toward each other. The hands are kind of far away from you here. Shift into the right leg. As you do that, you're moving toward your hands. Now they're closer to you. The fingers are pointing opposite directions. Your left foot has pivoted on the ball. All the weight is in your right leg. Let's just do that much again. So, into the left, turning to the right. Hands are far away from you. Shift to the right, release the left foot so that you're lined up toward the right wall, toward the right side, and your fingers are pointing 90 degrees. Now, you're going to turn toward the corner with your ball and take a step. Heel first, no weight. Begin to shift. Right hand comes inside left wrist. Complete the move. Right hand drops, left hand ward off. The left hand is facing the center of your chest, and the arm has a feeling of roundness. The right hand is down by your right thigh as if resting on the head of a small child. 70% in your left leg. Let's do those checkpoints again. Okay, into the left, turning to the right. Hands move toward each other. Shift. The ball of air is close to you. Fingers are pointing opposite directions. Turn to the corner and step. Begin to shift. Right fingers come inside left arm by the wrist. Complete the move. Right. So, you know where you're going. Now let's look at some of the ways to round this off and make the motions have meaning. So, let's look at this very first bit. How do we turn? The weight goes to the left leg and you turn to the right and your hands come up. When we do that square form, we're not worried about how we got there. We're just worried about getting there. What's happening? You're dropping into the left leg, and that gives you just the slightest bit of a gather that rather than instantly turning to the right, it's not that I'm turning to the left, but there's just a little bit of a give that makes a little roundness happen, and it goes very slightly to the left. If you look at what my hips are doing, as I sit into it, I might go, a degree or two off square, but my intention is to turn to the right. So this is a common theme. You're going to give in to take it the other way. So there's a little bit of this movement toward the leg that you're standing on to drive the whole motion to the right. It's not a two-part thing. I'm not going to the left and then to the right. That would still be square. But think about the fact that the top of your leg is a ball, and as we talked about on Tuesday, if you have, unless you do something to not have a little bit of rotation, you will. So allow there to be a little bit of rotation to the left, and that helps activate your right arm. And as you then turn to the right, it's like something is holding on to my arm, something named Lee, and I'm turning away from what's holding on to my fingers. And that is what brings the arm up. So try this with me. The difference between lifting your arm and actually sending it out, and then not lifting, but drawing it across the line of the bones of the arm so that it comes up because of the turning and the fact that your arm is connected over here, and so it's going to come up as you keep turning. So let's do it into the left leg, just slightly, and as that sets the right arm in motion, turn to the right and notice how that brings it into position. Now come back to the opening position, and this time I want you to just lift your arm. So you sit into the left leg, you turn to the right, and you lift your right arm into position. So the place it ends up isn't that different whether you lift it or whether you give in to the left, let that send the right arm out, and let the right arm follow the turning of the waist. They end up in more or less the same place, but the feeling and the path is very different. So let's do that again. I want you to lift once, and then we'll do the round thing. So sit to the left and lift your right arm. And notice the angle that it moves in. It just kind of goes from down to up. And the action is on the top of the arm coming up. Do it that way one more time, just so you feel the difference. So sit to the left and turn to the right and lift the right arm. Now, give into the left, let that set your right arm in motion, send it out, and then you're turning away from your fingers, and that draws them across. Now the motion is this way, not this way. So do that way again. Sitting into the left, the right arm goes in motion, it sends it out, you turn, and the turning of the waist is what draws the right arm into position. So rest your leg. This kind of action, we have a student who named it the special moment in the hips. You have to give in a little bit to make things round. Otherwise, every place that you change is going to be a sharp angle. So this is right at the beginning, and it's a great place to explore and practice that different way of movement. So let's carry on. So giving in to the left, right arm goes into motion. Turning the waist is what draws it up. Your left hand is coming in by the other one. And as you shift to the right, now you've got the same place as the square form checkpoints. As you turn to the corner, let your arms reflect the movement. And step, begin to shift. Same checkpoint, you're going past that point inside the left wrist, and complete the move. Now, what does it mean to complete the move? There's a sense of expansion. Wardoff is an expansive move. It expands in all directions, even behind you. It's very round. Think of it like a balloon, and it's expanding in all directions, not because you're pushing it out, but because there's a fullness that comes out in all directions, and that's what fills it and brings it to that rounded space. It's not round in the sense that you have to make roundness happen, but it's not angular. It has a sense of encircling you. It's called Wardoff. We've joked and said maybe it should be called nurture in, because this space in here actually matters. It has substance just like the air of a balloon. So let's do it again and look at getting into that final posture. So, giving in, arms go into motion, turning the waist to draw the hands toward each other. Shift and turn to the corner. Hands reflect the movement. They're not just static. Step and begin to shift. As you complete the move, feel roundness and fullness in every direction. And hold it here in the final posture. I want you to feel behind yourself as well. Let this be a nice encircling of the whole body, and like the hub of a wheel, it expands out in every direction. And rest your legs. So let's do it again. Dropping into the left leg, gathering, and expanding. Gather, expand. Gather, expand. Now let's look at how this right arm ends up. It's got this expansion that happens in the left arm. There's also when you complete the move, the right arm is dropping and coming out a little bit. It's not the case of this at all. And sure, doing this probably nobody does because I'm exaggerating greatly, but it's a little bit tempting to pull this arm back and have it down here at your side. Let that expansive quality play out in both arms so that this right hand is forward, not pulled back at all. So let's do that whole piece again. Giving in to the left, turning right. Feeling the breathing of the form. Expand all around. And hang out here. Relax your shoulders, relax your belly, relax your lower back. Make sure that the weight is resting in your left leg. Your left leg is holding you up, the right leg is hanging away from you. Check your wrists. Really easy to get a little bit of a kink in your right wrist as the hand comes down. And it's easy to kind of get a little twisted in the hand here. You want to feel nice and open. Rest your legs. Am I forgetting anything? Great, thanks, yeah. A little distracted today by what's going on. So, the next thing to look at is how you get into the footwork of the final posture. So what happens is you start shifting. Remember, we don't want to shift sliding across the ground. This would be sliding. I'm in my right leg, I move to my left leg, and then I turn in my back foot and finish the move. Or as I turn, I just bring the foot with me. But all that is independent and kind of held. So what I want to do instead is I give in to the full leg so that the weight starts shifting. Now the left leg is going to take over and become the full leg. As I do that, I'm starting to turn, and then the foot comes with me. The foot stops, and I keep going until I'm square. So I don't want to make this foot move with me in lockstep to my waist. So you can see the difference. If I move in lockstep, I'm going to end up sliding. See how nothing's changing here. And then I turn. And everything was kind of held. I have to lock my hip and just sort of lock everything in place so that it moves as a piece. We don't move as a piece. We have different parts. Things play out. There's giving in to ground. There's ground coming back up. So when you start to shift, the body is moving toward the final posture, and it plays out down to the foot, and then the foot comes, but the foot stops where it needs to stop. And see, I'm not yet square. And so I move before and after the back foot turns in. Now make sure it always stays on the heel. It's, for some reason, it's really easy to start coming on the heel and then have it slide out at the end. Right? So you don't want to let that happen. You want to keep the heel connected, but you want to find its way out to your foot, not just moving everything in lockstep. So let's do it from the top. And giving in to the left, right arm is in motion. You turn, that brings it into position. Shift. releasing the left foot, turn and step, begin to shift, waist is moving, foot comes in, foot stops, waist keeps turning till you're square at the end. This is almost always going to be how you move into a 70-30. So this is a good place to get familiar with that feeling. Let's do it a few more times. And then I'll pass it on to Lee. And go. Sitting into the left, right arm is pulled by the body into position. Shift. And step. Notice the moment when it plays out down to your foot, and notice where your foot needs to stop and get yourself squared up to the front. Let's do it again. And go. Feel the moment the foot wants to start moving, and then notice where it needs to come to stop to put you in a good position for your 70-30. Now, one thing about that left foot releasing in the first part of this motion, when you shift to the right leg, it's the same situation. I'm not turning on the ball and having that direct my motion. It plays out. It moves because the rest of the body is moving in a way that it needs to come along and follow the motion of the waist rather than hold you back and split you in two. So what that means is you begin to shift into the right leg, and I'm going to go kind of slowly here. And you can see that as I keep turning to square up to the wall, it's peeling the heel off the ground, and then as I keep turning, I just don't let it hold me back. So let's do that another time, and then I think I'll have covered all the salient points. So into the left, turning. Shift and leave that foot there. It's being taken up onto the ball gradually. Same as when it turns back to the corner. And of course, the same thing is true for the right foot right away. You don't just turn and make that happen. You give into the left, you start turning, and at the right time, when it plays out down there and you'd have to do something to keep it from moving, it just turns and you just know you're turning on the heel. So, one more time, let's just look at all the roundness of it and go. Down, gather into the left, turn, let things play out. Coming toward your hands and then turning to the corner. Step and shift. Completing the move. The foot is not in lockstep with the rest of the body. And up. Square, 70-30. Wardoff left. So now Lee will take us to Wardoff right.
So, Wardoff left, Wardoff right. Let's do the move with checkpoints, square, and then we'll look at the rounding it. And so, you should already have most of these square form checkpoints. Now, some of them may be ones that didn't stand out to you when you learned it before, or they may be a little bit different in the way that we choose the stopping points than what you learned or practiced. But there shouldn't be much surprise there. That's mostly review. And if you've learned the form in the first place with us, you'll recognize those checkpoints as being the main thing we taught when we taught you the form in the first place. So what we're trying to do with this is, one, make sure we really go over all those checkpoints and get them really precise. But then more interesting is answer the question of how and of why. How do you get from place to place? Why does the motion play out that way? And that's the process of actually getting to a round form rather than a square form. So we're going to spend most of our time on the how and why, and we'll make sure we review the checkpoints too. So let's do it together. Beth will face perhaps the same way you're facing, and I will face a different way so that I end up towards the camera. So from Wardoff Left. So the first checkpoint, you shift your weight forward and you turn to the right. As you do that, you end up in a ball of air with the hands directly over each other, palms are facing each other, and you've pivoted on the ball of the rear foot. So do that again from Wardoff Left. Shift forward, turn to the right, ball of air, rear foot pivoted. Now step for a 70-30. Make sure you get enough width. You got to step to the side. Heel first, no weight, all of that stuff. Shift. As you start to shift, stop at the 50-50 place. Your waist is still to the corner, and the two hands have changed so that they've gone from the vertical ball of air to a horizontal ball of air. And I'm facing the corner. My two hearts of my two palms are facing each other. I've got a small ball of air. And then I turn to the front. Ward-off right. Final posture of ward-off. The center of the palm of the warding off hand is right at my center line. That was true in Wardoff Left too. Center of the palm was right at my center line. The other hand, the way I like to do it these days, is that I keep this ball of air. We've also learned it where the hand drops so the fingers are pointed towards the palm, but I prefer it with the ball of air these days. So that other hand is between my chin or my chest and the right hand, and the two are aligned. They're not in different alignments. They're not crossed. It's not open. Center of right palm, right to center of chest. Left hand, small ball of air facing it. So let me review those checkpoints again. We'll do the checkpoints a couple times, and then we'll look at why. Why? Why do we go through those? And how? How do you make those things happen as a result of a change inside? So, from Wardoff Left, first thing that happens is all the weight forward, palms turn, rear foot pivots on ball. I'm facing the right front corner, and I'm no weight. Then I step, heel first, making sure to step to the side, so you'll end up with shoulder wide, no weight in that leg. I shift, the ball of air rotates, it comes up, I'm facing the corner, I haven't squared yet, and then I turn everything together, and it squares. So let's do that with the checkpoints again. And you'll see while we do that, that your rear foot is turning in the way that Beth was just working on, where when you do the square form, it's going to move in lockstep with you. When you go into Wardoff Left, you get to this corner place, and then you turn. When you finish turning, the rear foot goes down on the ground, right? That all happened in lockstep. Same thing is happening here. You step, you shift, and now as you turn, watch my rear foot, everything happens in lockstep. The foot turns just as I'm turning. And so it's actually important to do this, even though in order to make those external parts match exactly, you're going to have to use a little force. But you want to be able to know, are you synchronized or not? Does your foot move when you turn your waist or not? And then we'll work on how does the foot move? Why does it turn? And you'll discover that it no longer stays in lockstep. But for these first bits, go ahead and do it in lockstep. So, from Wardoff Left, with checkpoints. Weight goes forward, waist turns to the right, rear foot pivots on ball, palms facing each other, ball of air, my waist is towards the right corner. Step, heel first, no weight, check it. Shift, as you shift, the ball rotates, your waist is still in the corner. The hearts of the two palms are facing each other. And now turn everything together, rear foot on heel, just when the waist finishes, the rear foot finishes, and you're exactly square, heart of the right palm right in front of your center line, left hand between the body and the right hand, hearts of the two palms aligned. Rounded feeling in the right arm. Great. Once more, checkpoints. Wardoff left, shift and turn, ball of air in the corner. Step, shift, ball rotates, still in the corner. Turn, rear foot on heel, everything starts together, everything finishes together. Great, take a break. So when we're doing this work on turning square into round, we really don't want to downplay the importance of the square. You need to have all those fine-grained, precise details. And you need to look at what happens inside your body when you do those and try to relax places where there's unnecessary tension. So you really want to work on these square form details. Then you're not done. Right? Now you've gotten into the courtyard. Before you were standing outside the courtyard looking through the doorway. You come through the doorway with your square form details. You're in the courtyard, but you're not in the house yet. You're not fully in Taiji yet. And so now what you need to do is figure out fundamentally, how does that change get driven by the Dantian? How do you change what happens inside and have it affect what happens on the outside? And how do you relax every bit of extra tension, like these bits of tension that we use to make our rear foot turn with us? When I do that, I lift the foot, which means I tighten the ankles and the toes. I tighten the leg, and I make the whole thing turn in lockstep. Yeah. So you have to have that synchronization, because that's what gets you in the courtyard. That's what gets you in the ballpark of being able to actually do Tai Chi, because before then you're just discombobulated. It's just all pieces and things are happening. So you got to get that precision to get the pieces working together. But then you have to let go of that and see how do the changes really play out through the body. Yeah. So let's start looking at some of those changes really playing out through the body. So the very first one, when we come from Wardoff left, I said shift forward and turn to the right. Right? And you can see when I'm doing that, I'm just here. I move forward linearly, and now I turn, and as I turn, both hands and both foot and the rear foot turn. So all that stuff is happening in lockstep. Now Beth just talked about the special moment in the hips, the allowing yourself to sink into the leg, which might turn you slightly one way, and then you turn the other way as you go around a corner, rather than having a sharp edge, right? I can come down, hit a sharp corner, and come back up. I've got a sharp thing there. Or I come down and do a little curly cue as I go around there. That little curly cue is the special moment in the hips. And it happens because the top of our femurs, the top of our legs, it comes up, and then it comes into the pelvis, and at the top of that is a little golf ball-sized knob that the pelvis sits on top of. So, this is the top of my leg, and the pelvis is here, balanced on top of it, like a circus animal sitting on top of a rotating ball. And so when I make a change, it doesn't just go sharp angled, everything rotates, and then it goes the other way. So at the end of Wardoff left here, it's an expansive posture. What you do is let go, and that will turn you very slightly to the left. Now again, like Beth said a minute ago, don't turn this into square form. Don't go here, left, right. Right, then I've made 2 extra sharp corners. That doesn't get me to the round. So do this with me. Let's start from the end of the opening posture so we can get into Wardoff left. So sink, which rotates you slightly, and now draw along the right arm. Shift and sink into the right foot. Let yourself fill, step, sink as you come down, right fingers by left wrist, and inflate as you come up into Wardoff Left. Now just sink and let yourself see how that turns you slightly to the left. Come back to Wardoff Left and just release, sink into your front foot and see how that turns you slightly to the left. I'm not getting to the left corner. I'm getting maybe 15 degrees off of square, certainly not 45. So back to Wardoff Left. Feel that feeling of inflation and let go and let that turn you slightly to the left. Once more from the beginning. Go ahead. Ball of air. Filling and step as you shift. Let the right fingers come by the left wrist. Fill into Wardoff Left and release, which turns you slightly to the left. Take a break. Now, as you do that release, two other things happen. Maybe three. One of them is that when you're in Wardoff Left, the two hands are not vertically aligned. They're not the same distance out. See, if I do this, now my left fingers and my right fingers are in the same place. The right fingers are actually behind the left. And they're not over each other. There's space between them. When I do this sink, my right hand moves forward. It comes with me, and it moves forward to place itself underneath the left hand. So that's one thing, the right hand moving forward. The other thing that happens is the left hand rotates, but stays in the same place in space. So it doesn't come with you, because if it comes with me, now the hands still aren't over each other. So the left hand stays there in place. I sink and I turn inside the left hand as the left hand turns over, palm down now. And the possible third thing that happens is that your weight goes all the way into the front. And so your rear foot may come up slightly on the ball. As I'm here and I do this, you could now slide a sheet of paper underneath the heel of my rear foot. I'm not trying to keep it plastered to the ground because I'm actually letting it become free there. So let's do that little tiny thing. I want you to have it not be an active turn. It happens because you let go, which makes you turn, and then take advantage of that letting go and that minor turn to shift the weight, to move your right hand underneath your left, and to rotate your left hand in, keeping it in the same place, not having it come with your torso. So from Wardoff Left, get that feeling of inflation. Check that the two hands are not over each other. Right hand is slightly behind the left. And release moves the right hand, moves the left hand. Back to Wardoff Left. Release moves the right hand, moves the left hand. Once more. Wardoff Left. Release moves the right hand, moves the left hand. Great, take a break. So as you're doing that, we're always going to be looking at this changing relationship to ground and the way that the energy moves through your body towards the ground, or the energy comes back up from the ground through your body. Not a jack in the box, not on a pogo stick, but your open channels in your body allow this to happen, the pearl dropping through the pond as it goes in and out. So I've come through here, I've inflated, and as I sink, I'm dropping down towards the ground. I feel the ground in the bottom of my left foot, and then I let the rebound happen and bring me up, and that takes me to the checkpoint with the ball of air in the corner. So there's going to be a couple pieces here. Release, top hand turns, bottom hand comes underneath it. Rebound from the ground, turns the bottom hand, and rotates my rear foot on the ball. So this is a place where you're going to see some of the differences between square and round. So let's take it from Wardoff Left, and we'll just get to that ball of air in the corner. Release, sinking into your front foot. Rebound, filling ball of air. Rear foot is turned on the corner. You're facing, rear foot is turned on the ball. You're facing the corner. Again, Wardoff Left. Fill and release towards the ground. Feel the ground underneath your left foot. Rebound, fills the body, turns the bottom hand, turns the rear foot. Once more. Wardoff Left. Release, turns the top hand in space. Rebound, fills the body, turns the bottom hand, turns the rear foot. So When I said that square and round are different, there's a question of the checkpoints, the corners in the square form, and then the gestures that you make in the round form. And the gestures may be tied together differently than you think. So this one here, I let go and then it bounces back up. So neither of those is active, and they're connected. If I let go and I go down here to the bottom and I don't get that rebound, then this is going to be force when I turn. And, it's okay, it's all the process. But if you bounce a ball off the ground, when you bounce the ball onto the ground, if it's like a basketball or something, unless it's deflated, it doesn't just stop on the ground. You bounce it down and it comes back up. And so there's an inevitability about those times when the pearl dropping through the pond hits the bottom of the pond and the water comes back up. There's no pause there. It's one thing. I've filled, I let go, bottom and back. So I can stop here, and I can stop here, but I can't move authentically and stop here and then go to there. That last bit will be force. So I want you to feel this as one thing. The ball goes down to the ground and it bounces back. So from Wardoff Left. Release. Feel the bottom of your left foot and feel a filling that turns your bottom hand and your rear foot. Again, Wardoff Left. Release. Top hand turns in space, bottom hand moves, hit bottom, refill. Once more, and you don't have to hurry, but don't let there be any breaks. Wardoff Left. Release and rebound. Now from here, your rear leg is a little bit stretched, that dynamic tautness. That's part of what happened when you filled. And so you can step by again releasing and letting that foot move. So this next step is not a labored, forced step. From here, I don't just move my foot, right? That's the square form thing. We all know that's extra tension, but you got to have that precision. What happens is I've hit ground and filled, and now I release and my foot moves. Importantly, in round form, when one part of the body moves, all the parts of the body move. Not in lockstep, but in response to the change you made. So I've hit ground, tapped the earth strength, and rebounded. I've got a little dynamic tautness in my rear leg, and I let go of all of this, and it starts my hands moving. It starts the hands moving. Now we know that you have to be able to stop and separate there. When we're doing round, we're not going to stop you in those places, because often the thing that made the footstep is the start of a motion, and we don't want to break it. It's just like you don't stop here and then here. That won't be round. You can stop here, let go and rebound, let go, and then you could stop here. So there's going to be these slightly different punctuation points, because that's where one gesture ends and the next begins. So let's finish that up and then we'll do it. I sink, I hit bottom, I rebound, I fill, I release the footsteps, and I follow that down to the 50-50 place. I'm still standing on my rear leg. If I needed to move a foot, I can't do it without making any changes, but there's no question that it would be my right foot that I move. I'm still standing on my left leg. And then in a second, I'm going to be standing on my right leg, and there'd be no question about which leg I would move. It would be my left. So you're stopping in the 50-50 where you're still using the rear foot. So let's do this from Wardoff Left. Full release, top hand turns, bottom hand moves. Fill again, bottom hand turns, rear foot steps, tautness in the rear leg. Release, moves the foot, moves the hands, and start shifting and stop in the 50-50. And now at this point, this is just exactly the same place that we were in before for Wardoff right. The two palms are facing each other. You've got a ball of air. So do that again. Wardoff left. Full. Release. Ground. Filling. Release. Hands and foot move and shift. Ball of air. Once more. Full. Release. Full. Release. Ball of air. Okay. So now the other thing I want to bring your attention to is the left hand in getting into the ball of air. It's really easy to think about the right hand. We've come through here, and now the right hand is going to have to move a lot, right? It comes up so that it's got the ball of air. If it's really a ball, the left hand moves too, and it rotates. It's not just that you bring the right hand up and then the left hand does something. The ball turns as you do that. And that's going to be reflected in your waist. So you may notice, I don't want to make a big deal out of this because we're going to the right, but you may notice a slight rotation back to the left as you get to the ball of air, and then you've got the final rotation to the right. Again, slight, a result of everything else you're doing, not an active turn. It's not turn to the left, turn to the right, step, turn to the left, turn to the right. Now, that turns it all active, square, forced. But go ahead and allow your hips to turn slightly, and then you finish. But the thing I really want you to pay attention to is the backhand, that both hands are involved in taking the ball of air from being vertical to horizontal. As the ball gets smaller, big ball vertical, smaller ball horizontal. So let's do the whole thing all the way up to a Wardoff right. So from Wardoff left, full, release, feel the ground. Fill, release, step and start shifting, corner, turn, Wardoff right. Again, Wardoff left, sink, fill, step, hands move, ball rotates towards the front. Once more, Wardoff left, sink, top hand turns, bottom hand moves, rebound, bottom hand turns, rear foot pivots, release, hands and feet move, shift. You've got the ball of air, both hands rotated, come towards the front. Okay, so two last things. Just like going into Wardoff left, the rear foot pivots as you come into Wardoff right, not in lockstep. So as I come through here, I'm turning and the rear foot isn't moving. Then I get the right feeling, the rear foot will need to come with me. It'll come with me. It'll land in its place. I'm not exactly square. And then I finish. So I'm turning before and after the rear foot turns. So that's just like what Beth did at the end of the Wardoff left. The other thing is that Wardoff is expansive. So when you get to the end of the move, you want to make sure there's a little feeling of an expansion in all directions, but in particular forward. So it's not glancing. I'm not sliding across. I'm not just going where the motion is actually at 90 degrees to square. As I get into the end here, there's a filling. There's a filling at the end. So it's straight out, not to the side. And when we do square, it's really easy for it to end up glancing because I've stepped, I go to the corner, and now I turn everything, and as I turn, the motion of the front arm is across me rather than that feeling of filling and expanding at the end. So let's do it from Wardoff left to Wardoff right, 3 times, making sure you get every checkpoint. Do your best at rounding. And then we'll do 3 threes of the opening move to close. So, Wardoff left. Into the front leg, rebound. Release 2-step and start shifting. Both hands rotate. Come forward, rear foot turns. Expand at the end. Again. Wardoff left. Sink, top hand turns, bottom hand moves. Rebound, bottom hand turns, rear foot turns. Release, hands and foot move, both hands rotate. Turn, rear foot, lands, square, expand. Once more. Go ahead. Great. And I guess we ought to do opening from the both Wardoffs a time or two, because that's what we worked on here today. So you just did the opening move. And go ahead. Wardoff left. Right arm freed. Motion moves along the right arm. Right foot pivots. Big ball of air. Moving towards the ball of air. Filling, release to step, top hand comes down. Fill, turn, rear foot turns, expansive. Sink, top hand turns, bottom hand moves. Fill, rear foot turns on ball. Step, ball rotates. Turn, rear foot, lands, fill. Okay, twice more just for fun. Go. And once more, the beauty of doing it round is that because your body's relaxed and moving in harmony, you don't have to worry about when to turn the foot or when to move the hand. You just have to pay attention to the way that the changes you make in the center and on the inside play out through the body. So the beauty is you stop worrying about timing and managing it from the outside. The challenge is that you have to actually have all the little micro motions be authentic. And so you have to pay a huge amount of attention. So let's do it once more with attention. We just finished the opening move. And go ahead. Okay, great. And then I want to end with 3 threes, 3 repetitions of the opening move 3 times. So if you've done this with us before, it'll be familiar. But what we're going to do is start in the V, step for the opening move, do 3 of the lifting hands, and then close back to the V. That's once. And then we'll do that same thing again twice more. So 3 threes. So, and doing this, just really try to feel the moment, pay attention to the changes inside your body, and let those determine when the hands and feet move, rather than forcing the hands and feet. So, sink, left knee buoys, allow it to step. Shift, filling, rotates the arms. Turn, feel the ground through both feet. And fill. Release, arms move. Fill, long curve out to the fingertips. Hands slide back on the invisible tabletop. Arms rebalance, fingers slide off, and back down to the ground. Fill and release. From feet to fingers, everything back into the center. Rebalancing and filling. Down to the ground. Fill and release. Fill. On the release, back to the V. Again, sink, left knee buoys, foot steps, bottom of the right foot through the whole body, arms rotate, sinking down to the ground in both feet, rebound up through both legs, full. Breathe out, breathe in. Breathe out, breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Filling the room, back to your center. Vertical space above you, down to the ground. Once more. Filling, releasing. From your feet through the body to the tips of your fingers, all the space around you. Back into your center. Fingers point up, feeling the space above, down to the ground. Breathe in. Breathe out. Start shifting. Back to the V. Once more, I won't talk. Three times. Fill. On the release, shift. Use that to get back to the V. Great. So we'll keep working through the rest of the first third here, trying to give this a new, deeper look. Spend your time with it. And as you go forth into your day, try to do so with peace.